All right, here we go. So this is episode 857.
I think we're at 13.
Okay, I was close. Um we've got a few things to talk about. So the NBA playoffs are in full swing.
Yep.
NHL playoffs. NHL playoffs are really irritating me this year. It's just the teams that are in it, like, I just as a fan, no Boston,
Right.
no Chicago, no Detroit, no, I
I
mean,
will say, living in Florida, with the Lightning and the Panthers, it's been a little bit, but I can understand,
but that's a first round matchup, so it's
right.
like, then one's gone, and it's like,
Right.
okay,
The longevity is not there.
right. Um, and then we just had the NFL draft. Um, and then we got to recap and button up this whole Nico Iamaleava saga of the NIL stuff and everything that went on, and now that it's kind of all played out and kind of, what are we talking about here?
Right.
Like, and so there's like with the draft and that stuff going on and the transfer portals and everything else, it kind of goes hand in hand, and it's like, well, you know, it just, the whole system is screwed up right now,
Mhm.
and the how it meshes and it, what makes sense and what doesn't. It's unbelievable. But yeah, so no, yeah, I the TV right now has the Detroit drama that's going on, and
Yeah.
and it's
You know,
uh what,
yeah, I
what
was gonna say
go ahead.
we can start with that. While we're mentioning it, let's start with the NBA playoffs, right? Okay, so if you know us, right, we're not huge NBA guys. And we've mentioned a few episodes ago how Cade Cunningham has made, Detroit basketball relevant again. We went from 14 wins last season to in the playoffs this year. And it's exciting and it's cool because we had the Tigers and the Lions and Detroit's like on the upscale again. But again, I don't want to sit here and sound like the fan or the guy who's like, oh, well, that call is the reason we lost. Yes, that call definitely affected the ending of the game. However, before halftime, the Pistons turned the ball over 8 times, right? So there's a lot and this goes with any sport, with any game, right? We talked about, Michigan, Ohio State last year. Oh, if we would have just made one of those field goals, would okay, that's fine. Wouldn't make one of those field goals, but we also turned the ball over X amount of times, right? We didn't throw the ball X amount of times. We halfback dived, you know what I'm saying? So, and that's when it comes to sports, right? There's a million plays. Oh, if we would have just done this, we would have done that. Of course, right? I will say now, at the end of the game today, game four, Knicks versus Pistons, Cade Cunningham comes down the court, fires up a jumper. He misses, right? You make that shot, this conversation doesn't happen. But, you miss the jumper. There's a scrum under the basket, and the ball rolls out. Tim Hardaway Jr. scoops it up, fires up a sloppy three, right? Because the game is about to end. So you have to fire up a shot. Was there a foul? I think so. I think he
I
was
mean, I don't think there's any doubt that there was a foul.
right.
Look, even if you're the die hardest of Knicks fans or whatever,
Mhm.
it's a foul.
Yeah.
Knicks fans can say, "Oh, well, it was a desperation heave or whatever, and the refs aren't going to call it." But look, yeah, my thing, to your point, like, I mean, the Pistons, they got into the playoffs based off of, kind of almost resurrecting those bad boys teams and that mentality, and then the early 2000s teams of castoffs that were just, they just played.
Mhm.
And so what we're seeing in this series, and especially starting in game one when we had the big lead and then just absolutely blew it and let the Knicks go on, like, I think it was like a 22-point run or something like that, was unbelievable. And all of that bravado and that bad boyness. I mean, do you honestly think that a 80s, 90s Pistons team or early 2000s Pistons team would ever let a team have a 22-0 run on them? I
No.
mean, every player would
No.
have fouled out,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
before. before that happens. But going past that, I think that what happened is now in this series, we're seeing that the Pistons are they're looking for calls. They're not getting called. Look, you're a 14 win team. You've been bad for a long time. You snuck into the play. Not didn't sneak into the play, but now you're in the playoffs for the first time in a long time and everything else. You're not going to get calls, especially when you're playing against, a New York team, in the Knicks and in the history and the market and everything else. So it's weird watching them play. And like you said, with the turnovers, because it's like they're driving to the basket and stuff like that. And then they're looking, when they get contact, they're looking for a foul. And then they almost just give up the ball and give up
Right.
on the play. And that's not what we saw all year with them. So it's frustrating because we had a couple of close games in Detroit, especially with what was going on in this last game and that shot and everything else. So look, they're showing life. They're getting down. They're making, they're coming back and those kinds of things. And the last two games were very close. Could have gone either way, but they're learning how to win.
Mhm.
Okay. And I think it's kind of one of those things where we saw, back in a long, in my era, where it was you had to learn how to win. It was not given. I mean, the Bulls had to learn how to beat the Pistons. The Pistons had to learn how to beat the Celtics. The Celtics had to learn how to beat the Sixers and the Lakers. So I think that that's kind of where we're at with that. But it is frustrating as
Mhm.
as a Piston fan.
Absolutely.
Again, you know, yes, that was absolutely a foul. Was the shot going to go in? Was he going to make the three free throws? Was it, whatever? Nobody knows. I mean, but
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
it's frustrating, but now
it
they're in a
is.
3-1 hole and it's okay. Are you going to man up and go to New York? You already proved that you can win there once.
Mhm.
Let's go and let's get it to 7 games at
Yeah.
least, and see
Right.
what's happened.
Yeah, and especially, okay, so Coach Bickerstaff, he was obviously fired up after the game,
Oh,
right?
fired up,
I
running.
mean,
It looked like
he
me when I was coaching St. Edith, running
it
out
was
there
a
on the court.
yeah. Quick,
The St.
quick,
Edith.
quick sidebar.
It's
Well, when I was in middle school and he was my basketball coach, he got ejected from about every game.
no, 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 about
Just
half.
okay.
Yeah,
Well,
about
so
half.
he got it. He got long story
I
short, he got
probably
act.
got at least one technical foul in every
Okay.
game,
Yeah, well.
but ejected only about half.
To be fair, the opposing coaches were garbage. To be fair,
They were garbage.
they were garbage. But
On
no.
one
So
game, they were.
they yeah. Listen, we got stories, but anyway. So
Yeah.
so we go go back to Detroit here. Coach Bickerstaff, he was fired up, right? He's running out there, all this and whatnot. Now he mentioned in one of his comments that he mentioned prior to this game. The first home game in this series, this is the first home game in a couple years for Detroit. We had a lot of pressure on us, right? And so they come in. There's a lot of pressure to win at home, get that first playoff win since 2008. So right then and there, you're at a disadvantage, right? Anytime your back's against the wall and there's pressure on you, things are a lot tougher going in. So coming into the second game, okay, we alleviate
Mhm.
some of that pressure, take a little bit of the pressure off, relax a little bit. We got to get off strong, get a hot start going, but you don't do that. You come
Yeah.
off, New York comes out. They jump to an early lead. You turn the ball over 4 times, I think it was in the first quarter alone. You came back, cool. But so yes, it comes down to this final play. Well, there were so many mistakes made throughout the game that it should never
Mhm.
even came down to this final play. And okay, so whatever. Let's put that to the side. Let's talk about this final play. Was there a foul? Absolutely. Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, and the NBA administration had came out about a few hours after that game had ended and said, yes, that should have been a foul. Okay. Now you find yourself 3-1 in the
Yeah.
series. You're heading back to New York. Listen, at this point, you got to let bygones be bygones. You got to move on, and you got to nut up. You got to get some wins here, right? Like you can talk about how you were fouled all day long and this, that, and the third. you got to go out there and at this point you've already know your back. Listen, Detroit versus everybody. It's been this slogan for how long, right? And listen, I
Yeah,
don't want to come on here
since
as
the
a homer,
1800s.
right? I don't want to come on here as a homer and be like, oh,
Well,
it's
look, I'm a
but
homer. Yes, but yes, it irritates me that the foul wasn't called as a homer, but even as a normal fan or whatever, it is what it is. But again, like to your point, like you're saying, there's other things that you can do throughout. Again, the style of play that we're playing. It's again, we're kids learning.
Mhm.
We're kids learning how to
Yeah.
play in the playoffs. I mean, we haven't sniffed the playoffs since, I forget what it was. What the use
Yeah. So the last time
Blake
we were in the
Griffin team,
yes, so the last time we were in
snuck
the
in and got
playoffs,
swept.
the last time we were in the playoffs was 2019. We played the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round and we got swept. And that was when we had Blake Griffin and Reggie Jackson and all those guys. Our last win at home in the playoffs was 2008.
Yeah, it's a long time. This is a long time
Long
ago.
time.
Um, but yeah, so we'll see. I mean, are we going to get gritty? Are we gonna say, look, we're not going away. It will be a big thing if we can push it to 7. And I think it would be demoralizing if we go out 4-1
Oh, absolutely.
and lose the next game. That would be demoralizing. It will be a stepping stone to next season if
Mhm.
we can come back and make it a series. But
And
we'll see.
listen again. 14 wins last year,
Yeah.
worst record in the NBA, and we're sitting here talking about winning a playoff series a year later. You
Right. And
know,
and and you got Cade Cunningham who's learning how to be a superstar in the league. And you got a bunch of guys that are young and that are scrappy and all those kinds of again you're it's all a learning thing right now,
mhm.
and we're trying to figure it out. And hey, you know fight to the end in this series. Let's push it as far as we can go. Who knows? I mean, I mean, the
Stranger
games
things
have
have
been
happened.
close. The games have been close, so
Right.
you just figure out a way to hang on to the ball. Don't look for calls. Don't wait for the refs to bail you out. Go back to being the bad boys
Mhm.
and say, okay, we're like it's street ball. Like,
Yeah.
they're gonna body me. I'm gonna have to score with contact every single time. If you get that in your head and that you're gonna do that, then it doesn't matter if the refs make a call or not.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So again, we'll see. Hopefully that that it's a real test of
Mhm.
fortitude in character when this happens, and then how do you respond to it, right?
Yep.
Like I always say, I forget who the quote was by, but life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond.
Yep.
And that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah.
But and to that point, we can shift over to talk about what life has happened to um Shador Sanders in the NFL draft, and that's the big story, right? Like that we're talking about. And it was who's Cam Ward and
Mhm.
Shador Sanders is, if he's not the first quarterback, then he's definitely the second one. He's probably a top 5 pick, and all these other things. And then all of a sudden, boom, he drops, and fifth round pick. Um,
To the Browns, by the way.
and then there's all kinds of stuff going on all over the place, like talking about, like, okay, well, why is he dropping? Is it a conspiracy with the league? Is he being blackballed because of his dad? Is this kind of thing or whatever? And then it was, the interviews, and is he a good teammate? And all the clips started coming out of the quotes that, this is an early, 20, 21-year-old kid who's having a microphone stuck in his face after losing a game. And
True.
true, some of the stuff that he said is not the best, and those kinds of things. But I will say that, just to the point, leading into this, you know life is 90% how you respond. I will say that, the kid responded well to
He
it,
did.
still with excitement, jumping in the pool and all those kinds of things as if he was taken in the first round. He still acted the same way as with the excitement. Still was, thank God and what an opportunity and these kinds of things. So I think that, as we kind of break down, like, should he have been a first round pick? I don't know. I don't study tape on him, but I've watched some of his games and stuff like that. And yeah, he's got flashes and he's talented and everything else. But is there anything in his game that leads you to believe that he's a franchise quarterback guy in the NFL? I don't know. And also the way that he handled the end of the season and leading up to the draft, he just kind of was like, I mean, listen, no fault of his own. I mean, his dad's Deion Sanders. Okay. It's not like he had to fight for a spot on a high school team. It's not like he had to fight for a spot at Jackson State. It's not like he had to fight for a spot at Colorado. Now you're fighting for your football life.
Hmm.
And I think it's good for him. And the way that he's responded right now has been it's what you want out of the kid, right? And I think that this is a good thing because one, you got to fight to make the team now. And then you're in a quarterback room with five guys who, you know, Deshaun Watson, who knows, whatever, maybe four guys, but still, you're you're going to have to fight, and I think that that's a good thing for him, and we'll see what happens, with that. Maybe this little humbling and some maturity will take place. Maybe a little bit more I have to really develop and really work now. Not to say that he didn't have a good work ethic, but when your work ethic is kind of just you're given everything. You're still working hard, but you're still given everything. There's a different level of work ethic when
Hmm.
you're not guaranteed anything. And I think we're going to see it now, and hopefully the kid responds well. So what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, and so I was trying to find the post that I saw a while back, right? So you talk about a guy like Shador Sanders, right? Obviously Travis Hunter, his crime and his partner in crime, got drafted second overall to Jacksonville, and then you got Shador who drops all the way to the fifth round, and you're sitting here right now. Shador went through pre-draft activities with Cam Ward, right? They trained together, they did all this. Now, Shador opted out of the combine, right? And word on the street is that he had some pretty bad interviews with some head coaches, right? Like he had some
Right, the
pretty
Giants
right,
and
yeah.
and
Like the
some other
Giants,
teams.
one of the most notable ones is that he had some bad run-ins, right? Like he
Mhm.
just, and yes, Deion Sanders' son, right? Deion Sanders is arguably one of the greatest athletes of all time, right?
Mhm.
He is a guy who went out there and he proved himself, right? And I'm not gonna sit here and I'm not gonna knock the athleticism of these guys, right? As a
Oh,
collegiate athlete
yeah.
myself,
Yes.
right, I
Yes.
understand, you know, but no, in all seriousness, right? So let's talk about how, okay, so you retire the number at the University of Colorado.
See that
And
was
that's
just a
another
bad thing,
conversation.
and it's not like Shador was the one who made that decision, right? Like he
Of
catches
course.
flack for it, but that wasn't him. That was the university. That was his dad. That's again, and I will say one of the things like Shiloh was like, listen, I mean, he even said, Dad, this is on you. And then fired him and hired another agent.
Hmm.
And that was the kind of a thing. Um, and that's another point to it too. I mean, there's the stuff coming out, where Deion Sanders, their interviews and things like that, to where he made comments and said, "Look, I'm not going to say that there's certain teams that I want him to go to or push that or whatever, and that, but there are teams that I won't let him go to, and so I think that could have played into it as well. Like, oh, well, we're one of the teams that Dion doesn't want him to code to, and we're not going to want to deal with that. For a kid that, you know, again, yes, is he very, very talented? Is he, arm strength and all these other kind of things? Yes, but is he polished enough to be a franchise quarterback? Does he have the decision making? He took a lot of sacks. He was late with the ball at times, and those kinds of things. Did he make plays? I mean, the record, and then the blaming his running game all the time whenever things didn't go well and stuff like that. So again, I like the way that he responded right after, right while all of this was going on, um, and hopefully that this is a good thing for him. And let's talk about the stupid kid from the Falcons. Um, what Jax Ulrich, Jeff Ulrich's son that got his number and prank called him, and then apparently prank
Mhm.
called the Penn State tight end as well, doing that. And it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like, apparently they had a phone call and talked about it and stuff like that, and the apology accepted and all these kinds of things. But let's tighten it up. That's
Right.
that's something that cannot happen. How does the kid get the phone number when these
Oh,
numbers are specific? They're not the kids' normal numbers. They're
yeah.
numbers that are specifically given to them for this purpose, so that they're not on another call or getting, whatever and things like that. Tighten it up. How in the world does something like that happen? I mean, that's just ridiculous. And I think the NFL needs to levy some huge penalties to make it known that this is something that's just dumb and can't happen whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. It's ridiculous, right? And so there was a statement that came out today in which the kid had came out and had to apologize to the Sanders family. All these things that fell into place, right? Now, what this reminded me of was there's that clip that I'm sure if you follow sports, you've seen it. But back a few years back, I want to say it was like 2010 almost. It was years ago when these kids at Texas A&M were able to
Mm.
find the phone number for the baseball team, and they were like, "Yo,
Yeah.
get him going, get him in the bullpen or whatever." And they were ended up somehow connecting to the dugout and
Yeah.
were
They got
able
the
to,
dugout number and
yeah,
had the guy getting up and warming up
yeah.
in the thing.
Which,
Like,
like, this goes back. It's the same type of concept, right? Like, how does this happen,
yeah.
right? Now, and once again, like I said, he came out, he was identified, and he came out, apologized to the Sanders family, whatever. If you're Shador, I don't really think he gives a damn about the apology or whatever. Obviously, he had to have been on edge in that moment. But you talk about a guy like Shador who's living up. We talk about pressure, right? We mentioned it earlier with,
Yeah.
the Pistons' first home playoff game. We're talking about pressure and the weight on your shoulders. Dion's son, your buddy, Travis Hunter, your partner in crime, goes second overall, right? Like, there's so much pressure on you, and you're out here in this situation now where you're dropping and dropping and dropping. You almost feel for the guy, right? Like, yes, your dad is Deion Sanders, your buddy Travis. Like, you gotta feel for the kid, right? And then you get your number retired, right? And like you mentioned earlier, obviously not his fault. He didn't sit there and be like, retire my number, right? But it looks bad on the university. And then the way that he dropped draft stock wise, it's not again, it's not his fault. But
Again.
everything is just falling in the wrong way.
Mhm. And it's the first time in his life that he's had to deal with it, right? Like, but again, it's not the kid's fault, right?
Right.
Bill and I talk about this all the time. How ESPN makes a mountain out of a molehill and makes something like makes players and sensationalizes all these stories and everything else just to tear them down. And I think that this is kind of what he was so overhyped because of who he is and who his dad is. You know what I mean? That I and Mel Kiper, who I mean, come on, they did his look at 42 years of doing the draft and look at all the things that you got right, which is probably 10% of the things that he's ever said, which is he's an absolute joke of but he's like hyping Schefter and all these clowns. They're hyping him up so much. Like, oh, he's a top five talent. He's a top five. Oh, on what tape?
Mm-hmm.
Based off of what game footage?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and then his dad should have been coaching him on the interview process, but again,
Yeah.
of course, his dad botched that big time, telling the
Mm-hmm.
Lions, "You don't have enough money to put me on layaway," and those kinds of things. So again, ESPN, the media, these guys that are such insiders or whatever that have to be so right and everything else inflated him so much to where it was like such a shock that he dropped. Maybe it's a shock that he went, in the fifth round instead of the third round, but I think he's probably a third round talent.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
yeah, maybe he dropped. And to that point, we're all talking about like I don't even think he was the biggest bust of the draft or the biggest. I mean, Quinn Ewers
I was just about
came
to
out
say,
early.
think about all the guys that got drafted before him, right? Quinn Ewers wasn't one of them, but think about the talent like Jackson Dart and these.
Now
What
the
was
Tyler Slaw guy,
I was about to say? Tyler Slaw, and then they had another. Well, who's the other quarterback who was literally injured? Was it Tyler Slaw, the quarterback who didn't even play his senior year that got drafted before Shador?
Oh no, yeah, that's that he was later in the round. I forget who it was, but
But
but look,
point is,
yeah, the point is, go ahead.
yeah, no, I'm saying like the point is the fact that you had a guy like Shador who was projected to be the second quarterback out of the draft, and it dropped so bad to the point where players who didn't even play their senior year were drafted before Shador. And now you go to a team like Cleveland. Okay, we can sit here and we can talk about how ridiculous the franchise of the Cleveland Browns are, right? We can sit here and that's a whole other can of worms we can open up. But you do get drafted as late as you do. You're on a team that poverty franchise, right? And as Lions fans, we can sit here and we can say these things because we've been a poverty franchise for as long as we can remember. But how much do you blame on the kid? And how much do you blame on his surroundings? We talk about this all the time with the NIL and the transfer portal. And, we just did our whole thing about Nico Amaliava.
Which
When
we'll get into
adults,
because we
when
got to
it,
wrap that up.
right, like when adults aren't adulting,
Hmm.
what are the kids supposed to do?
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, you're almost 25 years old. So I mean, you're in that same situation. And obviously, how would you react in this type of thing? And I think back to when I was that age, how would I react in this type of a thing? It's hard. That's why you need that support system. That's why you need the adults in the room to be adults and to say, hey, and I think that Quinn Ewers people, they made a mistake with him because he leaves Texas and look, I'm not faulting him for leaving Texas because that situation was developing into you can't have Arch Manning sitting there for another year,
Right.
especially with the NIL money that you're paying him, the talent that he has, all this stuff.
Right.
He's ready to go. He's
And
ready to
also,
be the guy.
you didn't want to stick around to lose to Ohio State every time you got the chance to play him. So you
Well, that was the thing too. It's like he could have transferred back to Ohio State and
Well, Will Howard
for
said,
that 1 year.
"Listen." Will Howard said, "Listen, I'm gonna run this ship," and he did.
No, I'm talking about this year.
Oh, this year. Yeah.
Yeah, so Quinn Ewers, instead of going into the draft, he could have said, "Okay, I'm going to go back to Ohio State, and I'm gonna be the guy there," or could have gone, North Carolina, anywhere. And but see, so the thing was, is he was set to make probably around $4 million in the 2025 season as a quarterback in college. Getting drafted in the seventh round, you now make $4 million over the course of 4 years, about
Mm.
$4 million. And so it's like you left to go into the draft, and I mean, where were the people? Where were your people? Um, what why was this a decision? I mean, you could say, "Oh, I didn't want to get hurt," or whatever. Well, look, you can get hurt in practice on a practice squad or whatever, where you're at,
Hmm.
being a seventh round pick or anything else, just as well. And oh, well, I got that 4 year contract. Well, that 4 year contract is the same amount of money
Hmm.
as what you would have made for that one more year in college. So because of the way that the NIL is, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I get before, when you were like, "Oh, I can get some guaranteed money, at least a couple $1 million. Yes, I'm going to do it even if I get drafted in the seventh round." Now it doesn't make sense. Stay
Right.
in college.
Hmm.
Play the 6 years that
Yeah.
they let you play, and
Yeah.
do all. I mean, that you're going to make more money in college than you are if
You're
you
right.
get drafted in the fifth, sixth, seventh round.
Yeah, no, 100%, absolutely. And matter of fact, I saw a meme. I forget who posted it. We'll find it, but it said when after Dylan Gabriel had got drafted to the Browns, and then she got
I saw
drafted,
that
it
one
said
too.
Dylan Gabriel, the Cleveland Browns says that he has entered the transfer portal, right? Like, and
Yeah, and
it's
he's got a
funny.
habit of doing it too. He played for three teams, and if
Right.
he could have played for four, he probably would have.
He would
Um,
have, right. And so we sit here, we laugh, and it's funny and whatever. But in reality, it's actually sad. Like the fact that, because it's true, these guys lose their starting job because they get comfortable and whatever, and they're like, I'm out, deuces. Now, again, as a collegiate athlete myself, I'm gonna sit here and say, just earn your spot. Now you're sitting here with these kids, and I can also say this because I'm pretty close in age. You're losing the starting position, and your first instinct is, you know what, I'm out, fuck it. Why are you quitting? You're quitting. This is listen, you worked so hard in high school to get recruited and to be where you're at, and at some point along the line you slacked off, you lost your starting job, so your next instinct is, I'm out. You're quitting. No, earn your spot back, play well,
yeah,
win in practice, and earn your spot and keep your spot.
I mean, the perfect example. I mean, we go way back or whatever, but I mean, you look at like Tom Brady, right? So
Mhm.
he's a seventh round draft pick. He goes to the New England Patriots. He's a backup. He's like John Moxon with his book on the sideline, and like, I don't even know where my helmet is, and those kinds of things.
Mhm.
And then Drew Bledsoe gets hurt. And Tom Brady talks about it, and he was like, "I just knew once I got on that field, I was never going to leave it." And that was his mentality. So he had that opportunity. And then in that same season, in the playoffs for the AFC championship game, Brady wasn't healthy enough to go, and Bledsoe had to come back in and won that AFC championship game, which got them to the Super Bowl. And Tom was like, I'm not losing this job. Like, he's like,
Yeah.
I'm going to get healthy enough, and I'm going to compete and practice and make sure that I don't give this job back to the guy I took it from, who was at that time one of the top five quarterbacks in the league. And you're a seventh round pick with that mentality. The, that mentality doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't.
Although I will say, one of the but here but to I before we continue, for I have to say, I could not be more impressed with Cam Ward,
Mhm.
as a human being, and as a person. And I'm going to tell you what I mean. What Tennessee Titans, they just, back the Houston Oilers with Warren
Right.
Moon, then Tennessee Titans with Steve McNair, and now you got a guy in Cam Ward who he's your franchise guy, and he could be
Yeah.
there for 15 years, 20 years,
But
and I'm gonna tell you, I think he's talented, he's got it. I mean, he's just all about let's play
Mhm.
and let me get better, and he's not distracted by any of the nonsense or any of that stuff. And I didn't know much about Cam Ward the person until the draft, which is one of the
Mhm.
things I love about the draft is you get to learn more of that.
Right.
I knew Cam Ward the player. Yeah, absolutely, extremely talented, great arm, athletic, the whole deal, can run an offense, all that kind of stuff. But Cam Ward the person impressed the hell out of me. Seeing how he was. I mean, he wasn't worried about wearing a flashy suit. He wasn't worried about like having like the most talked about jewelry on or
Mhm.
whatever. He wasn't oh, I'm gonna put this model sitting next to me so that she can and it was him and his parents and his family, and it was him, and he was like, this is a business trip.
Yeah.
This is a business trip.
Yeah.
And I love it. And then seeing him at the facility in Tennessee and talking about like, oh, I'm learning about the city, and I'm learning about the things, and I'm getting into this stuff, and I couldn't be more impressed with him, and so happy that he went one, and I think Tennessee is going to be super happy with him moving on.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think Tennessee is going to be in a great situation. They're going to find their guy, whatever. They're still going to suck, right? And at the end of the day, like it doesn't matter because the Lions are going to win the Super Bowl for the next 10 years. So,
Right.
we sit here and talk about the draft and whatever. Like all these guys, they can draft their players, whatever. The Lions are going to, go on this tangent, whatever. But, but no, in all seriousness, though, no, I think Cam Ward, he's an exceptional talent. You watch the way he played in Miami, right? Like it almost felt effortless. Some of those plays where he's just kind of standing still in the pocket while there's a pass rush happening,
And then the
and
ball's
then he
out.
just fires it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And it
yeah,
goes 60 yards.
yeah,
I mean, yeah.
easy, yeah. He's an exceptional talent, and like you said, he's a great guy too. He carries himself very well. I think he's destined for success in the NFL going forward. But yeah, I mean, listen, we could sit here and go on and on and on about the draft, for hours on end. But overall, I think it was an all right draft, right? You talk about the talent who came out. A few storylines we touched on here. You had Shador and all these other guys and all these things, but it'll be exciting to see how these all play out, right? Like all these draft picks and whatever. And like Jackson Dart to the Giants, right? The Giants are in a situation now where you got four quarterbacks. And the Eagles are on I think they're coming down. They lost a lot of guys to free
Mhm.
agency in the offseason. The Cowboys are the Cowboys, so they're irrelevant. So you talk about Washington now with Jaden Daniels and things like that. I think things are going to get really exciting here going forward. While we're on the topic of football, Dad, you want to wrap up real quickly here, because we talked about NAL and college, and while we're on the topic of football and the draft, Nico Maliava, the
Yeah.
finishing touches to this. I mean, what else has came out, and what say you about the final decisions of this situation?
So, there's the good and the bad of the NIL, and that's kind of was like my whole point of it before. Like, yes, there's good to it if we know what we're doing with it, and everybody understands what the rules and the parameters are. I think one of the good things about it is that I was just looking at it. I don't, I can't tell you the last time that I thought there was, let's see, one, two, three. I, I I mean, all of the quarterbacks that were taken in the draft and the four quarterbacks that were signed as undrafted free agents. There was Quinn Ewers, who was a redshirt junior, and Jalen Milrow, who was a redshirt junior. The rest of them were seniors.
Mhm.
And that's what NIL is doing. You're kids are staying in college and they're developing. I think we're going to see better talent coming into the NFL because of the way that the NIL is. We need to fix it because here's the bad side of it. We talked about what was going on when the news first broke about Nico Iamaleava and everything else, and that, oh, he's leaving. And then he was, oh, was he trying to get another deal and this, that, and everything. So as it played out, kind of here's the deal. So there was rumors that people were saying that he was trying to negotiate a deal prior to the playoffs, and that it was reported that the reason why was, oh, my deal is for X amount of games. Now that we're in the playoffs, I'm gonna have to play more. I should get more money. And, it's like, okay, NFL players, I mean, there's bonuses worked into the contracts, and we can do that moving forward as far as if you make the playoffs or if you win, make it to the NFC Championship game, players get bonuses based off of that or performance bonuses. Okay, well, fine. Let's work that into the NIL deal. But players also have contracts with these teams, and then there's an issue if they can't just leave year in year out and those kinds
Mhm.
of things. So we need to do that with the NIL. um I think that so there was that was going on, that, oh, he was, and there was a couple other players apparently on Tennessee that were doing that as well. um his parents come out and say, oh no, it was because of the offense. And look, hey, the Heupel offense under Hendon Hooker was one of the most exciting offenses in college for a quarterback to be a part of. It pulled back since Hooker left. Milrow wasn't, or um what am I'm drawing a blank on boy Mixon. Joe Mixon came in after Hendon Hooker and ran it for 1 year. Mixon had a hard time. He just overthrew people and stuff like that. So the offense would sputter and things like that. Nico, the same thing. He put up great numbers against Kent State and these guys who, Kent State's now going down to Division III and what all that. But then when he got into the SEC play, oh boy, and then that offense sputtered. So, was it the offense or was it the quarterback running the offense that was then the issue? But so then Nico starts sniffing around, and whether it's Nico or whether it's his dad or whatever, his team starts sniffing around saying we want more money. Nico was making $2.5 million a year under his deal with the University of Tennessee. He was wanting to get north of that. He was wanting to get, Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning type money at around 4 million, and Carson Beck. I think a lot of it had to do when you saw Carson Beck get that deal with Miami. He's like, oh, I want that deal too,
Mhm.
because I mean, Carson Beck, was getting 4 million, or what are we doing here? Um, so so then he starts looking around. Well, then it comes out that, Dan Lanning in Oregon calls Hype and says, hey, dude, your guy's sniffing around for a deal. Turns out he wasn't even sniffing around for a deal at Oregon. He was sniffing around for a deal at USC. And so Dan Lanning was like, no, I don't want you going to USC. So I'm going to call Hype and then blow this whole thing up. But so then that's the issue, right? Like, it's like, okay, but then he couldn't even get the offers. He ends up with this deal for less money, and in at UCLA. And I think the what it was, after all this, the California taxes, he's going to make $800,000,
Yeah.
and he was making 2.5 million
Yep.
at Tennessee, and he's going to UCLA. Who's, I mean, I don't know, maybe they can get better or whatever, but you know,
So
um, so
yeah, like
uh,
so my issue with this whole thing, right, is as you just mentioned, right? He took a pay cut, right? He's making less money going to UCLA than he would have made to stay at Tennessee, right? And the whole thing was supposedly about money, right? His dad came
right.
out. His dad's like Kanye West on Twitter, just, Twitter thumbs nonstop, whatever, da da da. Cool. Got it, whatever. And once you mentioned earlier, like if the adults aren't adulting, then what are the kids supposed to do, right? Whatever. So we're out in a situation now where you're talking about, okay, so we talk about money first. And then it comes out that, oh, well, it wasn't the money, it was the offense at Tennessee. Okay, so you're in the SEC now, right? And you're not happy at Tennessee. Okay, so we're going to jump ship. We're going to go to UCLA. You're in the Big Ten now, right? You're a freshly new team in the Big Ten where you got to go against Ohio State. You got to go against Michigan. You got to go against Michigan State. You got to go against Wisconsin, Maryland, Illinois,
Penn State.
Penn State. You've got to go against some good teams now, right? And yes, okay, you were in the SEC where you played Florida, you played Arkansas, you played Georgia,
But you
Bama,
had a better team around you.
exactly. Exactly. You had better opportunities in the SEC at the University of Tennessee,
I mean,
whereas
you made the
now,
playoffs.
right. Well,
Well, but look, I mean, yeah, whatever. I mean, listen, oh, Ohio State homer over here, whatever. But you made the playoffs with Tennessee, and you could have. I mean, you're in a situation where it's like, okay, another year in the system, running the system, and you can progress better in into the playoffs and stuff like that. But it would like again, it was to try to say blaming the offense is kind of a silly thing. It's the hype, snap it and go offense. It's like I don't know a quarterback in the game that wouldn't want to be in this offense. You've got talent all over the field, in the backfield, receivers, tight ends, everybody, and it's go, 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 go. We want to score 100 points a game. What I'm to me, Peyton Manning running this offense would be unbelievable. He would be salivating over it.
yeah,
But you're saying it's the offense? No, it was you were trying to get more money. You got caught up in the NIL stuff and the fact that it's free reign and you can transfer every single year and play for four different universities in 4 years and then, be done. That's where the bad part of it is. Like if you have to sign a contract, for a 3-year NIL deal, let's do that.
right.
Let's make it to where you can't and then there's buyouts.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put incentive laden NIL deals together. Again, if it's going to be a business, run it like a business
Yeah.
and do it the exact same way. And it's just this is a cautionary tale for everybody else, right? Like
Yes.
let's be smart about it because look what happened with Quinn Ewers, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the ability to make a bunch of money in college football if you get yourself into the right situation and get the right NIL contract going. You're gonna make a lot of money, but once you do this, you hurt yourself.
Yeah.
You're in this situation now at UCLA, and then what makes it even worse with the Iamaleava family, Madden, his younger brother, signed with UCLA,
Yeah.
transferred after
Yep.
signing day to Arkansas, then as an early enrollee, decided in the spring, oh, now I'm transferring back to UCLA. So now, like, what are we doing here? So you've got Nico and Madden. Like, what was that the goal the whole time that his dad? I mean, maybe his family just wanted him to be home. Maybe
Maybe.
in everybody. I don't
Maybe.
know.
Maybe. But once again, this goes back to the whole point of these are kids,
Hmm?
right? Like, if I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think we'll ever fully be able to understand where Nico is coming from, right? Because anytime Nico wants
Yeah,
to speak, he's got an agent who's going to tell him to shut up and speak for him. He's got his dad who's going to sit out here with his Twitter thumbs and call people bitches and whatnot and this and that.
yeah.
You've got the university, you got ESPN, you got Fox, you got like these kids aren't actually going to be able to speak out and be like, listen, right? Because again, like you said, it's a business now. So we're running it like a business. You've got 19, 20-year-old kids who have agents who are telling them how to live their college life. And now you're going to
And
look
it
back at it and your whole college experience, it's out the window.
and they have agents that don't know how to be agents
Mm-hmm.
because essentially it's a family member or a friend or somebody who has a vested interest not just in a commission that an agent gets, right? Like they're like, "Oh, this is generational wealth
Mm-hmm.
for our family and I'm the dad.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to make sure that our family and then you screw it up."
And that,
And it's horrible.
it's horrible. And that's my thing, right? Like, we sit here on this podcast, father son duo, right?
Mhm.
Obviously we have a great close relationship as a father son, right? I could not imagine being in a situation that Nico's in and you going out there calling people bitches and going on Twitter and doing all, I could never imagine that. I just couldn't. I know my dad and I know you, like you wouldn't be out there doing this, right? And so for me, granted, we don't have that money in front of us, right? We don't have the fame in front of us, but still, I still don't see you as a father coming out. And again, I'm not sitting here trying to knock families and knock relationships, whatever. I'm just saying these type of things have gotten to where they're at because the higher ups have let it get out of control.
Right. Because there's no rules. And so
Right.
now the main point is what is my short-term gain? And that's why you have Dylan Gabriel, who's played for three universities. That's why you have, players doing this. Drew Pine, from that started at Notre Dame, went to Arizona State, then went, I forget, Missouri, and now
Mm.
he's transferred to Bowling Green.
Yeah.
I think, and then I think I missed one in the
And
middle
you
of it.
and you at your place, you could throw a rock at Bowling Green. That's how
I could
close you
throw a
are.
rock to Bowling
You could
Green.
throw a rock. Well, you might be
Yeah,
able to
I
be able to.
just it's yeah, just 15 minutes north up the 475 there. But it's yeah, it's ridiculous, and that's why let's do this. Let's know, and then it helps with the recruiting because we know I've got this guy locked in, so let's
Mhm.
we know what we're doing for the next 3 years or 2 years or whatever. If you want to sign a guy on a 1 year deal, then that's the decision you have to make as the
Mhm.
franchise, as the university. Okay, do I want to waste one of my 3 years with this 5-star recruit by bringing in a 1 year guy and starting him?
Mhm.
Those kinds of things. Do I want to sign a 5-star recruit to a 1 year deal and know that I'm only going to have him for, do I get him 1 year as a freshman or do I wait to see if I can get him 1 year as a senior? But at least if you're doing that, you know what you're doing and you're going in and you can plan out how you're doing it. I think that again, it's, we've overcorrected a problem and we've done it without an end solution. Like
Yeah.
there's no strategy to it. It's like, oh, this is a problem. Then the way to fix it is to do this. Okay, well, we overcorrected. There's no strategy and there's no parameters. Let's get it together again. Um, I saw the one thing to where um, there was a post about how to fix college football and it's broken or whatever, and it came from college football. um and I like a lot of the stuff. I mean, it talks about restructuring conferences and stuff like that or whatever. I whatever that's going to happen, whatever. I'm not, I don't really care too much about that. It kind of sucks to see, all of this
Mhm.
realignment and all that stuff, whatever. But I do think one of the big things was having a governing body, and it's
Right.
not the NCAA anymore. The
No.
NCAA is done. They
No, they
have
don't have.
zero
Yeah.
power over college football.
They have no control over anything.
Right. Zero power over. So let's get a governing body with a commissioner who's making these decisions and setting these parameters. Let's actually run it like a business. Um, y- y- you know, y- the NFL has a salary cap. Why can't we have a salary cap for these universities? Let's level the playing field a little bit. Maybe you set a 1, 2, 3 freshman, junior, sophomore, junior year. Each year you can get more money, you can earn more money, or let's do incentive laden NIL deals, those kinds of things. Those are all good. And I think we need to, again, once you do that, then it restricts the transfer portal, and that reins that in instead of having guys being able to transfer, you know, whenever they want and however many times they want.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like, so this goes all the way back to our very first episode. We talked about NIL and transfer portal
Mhm.
and what needs to be done, right? And like you mentioned, it went from law and order to martial law in a
The
matter
wild,
of
wild west.
yeah, like overnight, right? We talked about destroying Donald De La Haye. Uh, for those of you who don't know, kicker at UCF who was essentially asked to leave the team because he was making money off YouTube, and he wasn't
Yeah.
making nearly as much as what these schools are offering these players now, right? And then we went, on a tangent, and we talked about how if these guys want to get their sponsorships from Nike or Roback or Adidas or whatever, go get it, be good, boom. And now you're in a situation where these and now we're in this Nico situation.
Mhm.
And it sucks. It's sad. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, because if you cap the universities, then you're more incentivized to get your deals elsewhere,
Right.
right? So you cap the universities. Maybe, I mean, maybe the salary cap is, yeah, across the board. So now you have to decide, okay, I only have like $1 million to hand out to these kids or whatever, instead of giving $4 million deals to a backup who's going to sit for a year, right? Like what Texas is doing, because it's unlimited, right? And universities have, and then you get like University of Michigan, who has more money than anybody,
Yeah.
because of their alumni base. And I mean, they just are, it's just a huge institution. That's just the facts of it. And so now they can sit there and say, well, we lost a guy who was in our backyard to LSU. Let's go throw $10 million at him and bring him back.
Well, you have Dave Portnoy, who's got his barstool money that did that.
But
But still,
he rallied a bunch of people together. I mean, he didn't throw $10 million out there. But again, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if you have a cap, then you can't do that. Like, would he have left LSU if it was 5 million? Would he have left LSU, if it was 4 million? I don't know. I have no idea. But there was a reason why he was in the backyard of University of Michigan. I mean, literally at Belleville High School, which, Ann Arbor and Belleville, it's 10 minutes apart. And he decided that he's going to go to LSU. And the only reason why he came back to Michigan was $10 million.
right.
I mean, there was a reason why he left the state and went to LSU. It wasn't, so don't act like it's because, oh, I love the University of Michigan. No, you had that opportunity. And then you got $10 million and you came back. So that's the kind of stuff that we fix with a cap, in
Yeah.
it.
No, I agree. I agree.
But
And like you said, if it's a business, let's run it like a business,
mhm.
right? Let's take notes. Let's look at it like the NFL, right? Let's create a cap, like you're mentioning, right? Let's make a contract. If you're gonna agree to play for this university for 2 years, then you're locked in, right? So
Mhm.
like that's what I listen. I think there's so many ways we can attack this, but something needs to be done soon because it's getting out of hand.
Yep.
Um, but we've
Okay.
we've
To
gone
that
on a little
point, let's
tangent.
let's
Yeah.
pause
Yeah. What do you
so
got?
that I can go to the bathroom. Oh, there it is. Did you wipe?
I didn't poop. I'm out of
How,
toilet.
how,
I'm out of toilet
how,
paper.
how did that's not good. You gotta use a
No.
sock. Did I tell you about my guys on the baseball team at Spring Arbor
No. What
that
happened?
I was over there, and um I had to poop. So I went in there and I'm looking, I'm like, there's no toilet paper. So I'm like rummaging through the bathroom trying to find any more rolls. So finally I'm like, there's no toilet paper. So I'm like, dudes, like someone needs to toss me a roll. Like, what's up? And my guy My guy Dempsey was like, "No, just use. Do you see the on the rack?" I'm like, "What?" He's like, "On the rack, and there's a sock, shit stains all over it." And and I'm like, he's like, "Just put your hand inside it." I'm like, "What? Just put my hand inside it." He's like, "Yeah, it saves money." Like,
Uh,
this is not okay. Like and I jumped in the shower and like,
as you do,
yeah,
as you do.
because there's no using a sock.
No, no. By the way, I advise everybody to keep a little napkin on you at all
Yeah,
times.
I don't have mine.
See, now that's
Um,
bullshit, right? Okay, so
yeah,
quick story for you guys. So my stepmom Katie, my dad's wife, they had just visited Orlando recently, and she was expecting me to be on her side. And so we're at dinner, and she goes, so your dad came to bed for the night and came to lay down, and I reached for his hand, you know, and I felt a napkin in his hand, and I said, "Why do you have a napkin in your hand?" And he goes, "Well, because your nose runs, and with a
the
beard,
eyes, allergy
you
eyes.
get the eyes.
You got to dab.
Sometimes when like for me, when living in Florida, you're just sweating all the time because it's never lower than 90 degrees. So, you do a little on the forehead. And as she's telling this story, I have a napkin in my hand. And
It's a
so
good play.
it's like
It,
the way
it's
I
it
described it, the way I described it yesterday was it's a Swiss Army knife,
it is.
and it's essential.
It is.
It's essential.
It's survival tools that you have to
It
have
is.
at your disposal to make sure that you're good. And it's
That's
I
the
don't see
problem.
anything wrong with it.
I don't see
Or
anything wrong with it. But while we wrap up this episode, what I do see wrong was something here. Um, Real quick, John Cena's heel turn. We talked about how it was just kind of like, eh. Well, he goes out in WrestleMania, wins the belt from Cody. Now Randy Orton comes out and was like, "What's up, dudes?" So now we're looking at Randy Orton, John Cena for Backlash coming up here soon. It's like 2009 all over again. I love the nostalgia factor of it, but this is what happens when you take a guy like Cena and you turn him heel and then you give him the belt. You have no choice but to do stuff you've already done before. You can't do anything
yeah.
new, right? I mean, what are your thoughts now? Cena turns heel, he beats Cody, and now you got Randy Orton coming back. I mean, what do you think?
Again, it just comes down to the fact that he can't be a heel. John Cena is the Make-A-Wish guy. Like I've said before, he just can't do it. Randy Orton's a much better heel. So then what do you do when you got that? Like, like, oh, does John Cena say, "Oh, okay, I'm good again," and then Randy Orton's a heel, and that makes a lot more sense
Mm,
than trying to, make John Cena be a heel. And in that, I mean, in fact, Cody Rhodes would be a better, you
yeah,
know, I mean, there's just so many people. I mean, you got to see Seth Rollins, who embraces it, and he was out there in the NFL draft and announcing one of the picks for the Bears and just playing it up and eating it up, and was in Green Bay while he was doing it, and it was fantastic. And you just it's disingenuous when you see somebody like John Cena trying to do something like that. It doesn't feel right. So move away from it. Move away from it as fast as you can. You had the WrestleMania moment, which was whatever. But you got to move away from it
yeah,
quick and get somebody else in there. And do it the right way.
right,
Something that's
right.
believable.
Right.
You know,
And exactly. And that was my biggest thing this whole time was that it didn't seem believable. It seemed forced. his promos, they seemed forced. Like when he came out there and he would, talk his shit in the microphone, it didn't seem like he was out here really just talking his shit. It seemed like he was out there following a script. Whereas when you're old school Randy Orton's, your Kevin Owens, your Seth Rollins, your CM Punks, they'd go out there and talk their shit, and you'd be like, okay, this is legit. Like this guy's not following a script. So, I think that was the big thing. And then, they brought the whole thing with The Rock. The Rock is supposed to be the mastermind behind all this, and he didn't even show up at WrestleMania. So it's like, okay, so you do this whole thing, and he doesn't even show. What it was? It was Travis Scott. Travis Scott is the guy who's not even a wrestler. You had a rapper come out and be the key factor to the main event of WrestleMania.
And had no idea what he was doing.
Not a clue.
Was
right?
like to kill people.
Like Travis, I like your music, but stick to the studio, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, WrestleMania was fun. It was cool. I wish I could have been there for it, just for the atmosphere and whatever. And it's definitely on the bucket list as we progress here at Liberty Sports. WrestleMania is, as far as the Super Bowl and the World Series, definitely on the list of events that we got to get to. But Dad, what else you got here to wrap us up real quick?
So let's do a little top 10 ranker
Okay.
Thing. I've got pulled up here according to ranker.com. They list the 10 best current MLB hitters.
Okay.
So ranking the top 10 hitters in baseball right now. According to Ranker, who is on that top 10 list? Can you get that
can I
top
do it?
10 list?
Okay, well, in reality, I really only have to rank 9 because Bryce Harper is obviously number 1.
Well, he's not.
Okay.
He is in the top 10.
Well,
He's
of course. He's
at number 7. So you got one of the top 10.
All right, so this list is already ridiculous. But okay, so Aaron Judge is on there.
Aaron Judge is number 2.
Okay, Aaron Judge is number 2. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna say Shohei's on there, right?
Shohei's 1.
Shohei's 1.
Mm-hmm.
Shohei should really be 2 because Bryce should be 1. But all right, so let me.
I don't even know if Shohei should be 2.
Yeah, I don't think he should be 2.
To be honest with you,
All right, so we got Harper, we got Judge, we got Shohei. Is a healthy Mike Trout on there?
A healthy Mike Trout is number 3.
Okay. That sounds about right. Okay, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and put Acuna's got to be on there somewhere, right? A healthy Acuna.
Yes, he is 5.
Okay. Now, you know what? I'm gonna throw Riley Green on there.
No.
Any Tigers?
There are no Tigers on the list.
Okay. All right, well let's stick with the Yankees theme then. Let's go Giancarlo Stanton.
No.
Really?
Because you got to do average as well.
Okay. So we got Acuna, we got Harper, we got Ohtani, we've got Judge.
So right now you've got Shohei at 1, Judge at 2, Mike Trout at 3, you got Acuna at 5, you got Harper at 7. So you need
Altuve's got to be on there.
No.
Really?
No.
No Altuve. Mookie Betts.
Yes, Mookie Betts is number 4.
Okay. All right, so Mookie Betts is on there. No Altuve. Man, okay. Let's go Bobby Witt.
No.
Really? Ellie De La Cruz.
No.
Wow. Okay. Adley Rutschman.
No. Think more. You're thinking more, which I don't know. Like Ranker doesn't really like. I think they're thinking a little bit more longevity.
Okay, so thinking like old school players or players.
Not old school. I mean, we're in the same. I mean, Harper and Acuna,
active players.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
but still like active players who have been around the block.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Ooh, okay. Thinking active players who've been around the block a little bit. Let's go. Man, Kyle Schwarber.
No, but okay. So let's. I'll give you. You already named two players from this team, and I'm surprised you didn't think of this one from that team, especially after how the World Series that they had.
Freddie Freeman.
Freddie Freeman is
Okay.
at six.
Okay.
So you need eight, nine, and 10.
8, 9, and 10. All right. So I've got, if we're going to talk teams here, out of the three remaining, are they on contending teams?
One, possibly two are.
One possibly, but two
Probably
are.
two. I would say two of them are on contending teams.
Jose Ramirez.
Jose Ramirez is eight.
Can I go ALNL or are we
Yes,
cheating?
yes, I can do it. One's AL and one is NL.
Okay.
Do you want division? I can give you a division.
Yeah, let's go division.
Okay, so AL East,
AL East. All right, and what's the NL?
NL East.
So they're both okay, AL and NL East.
Yep.
And I've already got Judge on the Yankees. You said no to Stanton.
So your AL East guy has been on the same team his whole career. Do you want a position?
Is he on the Rays?
No,
Red Sox?
no. Keep going. You go.
Oh, Vlad?
Yeah, Vladdy.
Okay. So you got
Vladdy's
Vlad.
number nine. Vladdy's number nine. So now you got your NL East guy. You love this guy. I'm surprised you haven't said him.
He's on the Phillies.
No.
Oh, Lindor.
Yeah, Frankie.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like
That's
that.
number 10.
I like that. That's a
Yeah.
good list.
That's a good list.
That's a
I
good
mean,
list.
I don't know if I agree with the
Well,
list,
okay,
but
yeah, I was about to say.
it's a pretty fun list.
Yeah, as far
Um,
as agreement goes, but it's a fun list. No, I like that. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think there are a few guys on there obviously that I think are more deserving than others, but yeah, overall, I think that's a pretty cool list.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Otani's one. I mean,
Yeah,
that's silliness. Um, you know, yeah, when healthy, could it be Acuna? I mean, to not have Bobby Witt or Gunnar Henderson and those guys on it? I mean, maybe it's just looking for a little bit more longevity,
yeah.
kind of a thing. But
Yeah, it's a fun list. Well, and
yeah,
while we're on the topic there to wrap up the show, uh super quick here, like 2 minutes. Baseball. We're in full swing, man. We've been going for a few months now. Um, who are your positives right now? Who are your negatives? And what do we think is looking good here for the rest of the season?
well, I'll tell you what my surprise in the AL is the Tigers. Obviously, I mean they have the
Mhm.
best record in the American League. That's a surprise. I mean, you
Yeah.
knew that I mean, they had a good year last year. They thought that they were going to improve. Spencer Torkelson is back to his old self. Which is awesome. Tarek Skubel's doing Tarek Skubel things. Javi Baez is hitting like
Is he
280.
back? Is he back?
I don't know, but they got him playing center field now. Which is
He's
which is
he's he's been
fine.
and he's
He's
made some
been
pretty
he's
incredible plays
yeah,
out there at center too.
exactly. I'd say the biggest disappointment that I have right now in the AL is Baltimore. I
Mhm.
mean, the Tigers just swept Baltimore. Baltimore struggling. I mean, I thought that they were going to win the division over there in the East, and they need to figure it out. They need to figure it out. They need to get it together. Um, over in the NL, um, I the I would say maybe you look at it and say the Mets because of the start that they've had is the surprise
But
that
I will say Soto had a rough start to the season.
right, which and then you look at that too and you say, okay, so he has, I mean, he's still trying to get himself used to being with the new team and stuff like that or whatever, but they're still you know playing extremely well. They had a tough loss today,
Mhm.
and actually a couple of tough losses. But I would say that you know the biggest disappointment right now over there is actually the Phillies
Yeah.
because you know it's yeah they've struggled out of the gate. So we'll see what happens. I mean, there's too much talent on that
Yeah.
team. Are they? Does there need to
Right.
be a shakeup? Are they getting a little bit older?
Man,
What's going on
I
over
mean, you
there?
think about it. You think about it over there in Philadelphia, right? You've got Kyle Schwarber, you got Bryce Harper, you've got Trey Turner, you've got Nick Castellanos. You've got guys, right? Like you got some big name dudes over there. But yeah, you're
You
right. I
got
mean,
pitching. You got Nola. You got
yeah,
Walker. You got, I mean, you got pitching. So
yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see. I mean, I think the way this season has started off, right? Obviously, the Dodgers started hot as everybody thought they would, right? The Yankees, right? I mean, big question mark there, right? What are the Yankees all about? Obviously, they had that performance last year in the World Series. The Dodgers owned them. And so we're sitting here, and then obviously you mentioned in the AL, you talk about the Tigers, right? That opening series against the Dodgers gave them a run for their money, man. They it wasn't like we were, getting blown out, right? Like these were
yeah,
like 3-run games, right? So obviously as homers here, we're gonna sit here and still ride the Tigers, but
I
in
love it.
in all reality, they've played some great ball.
Yeah,
There's a lot of good
they
ball
are.
clubs here. There's a lot of good ball clubs who have made some impact already quickly off the gate. Um, I think it'll be a fun season here coming up, but we got a whole summer, right? And that's the best
Yeah,
part about baseball. We got a
yeah.
whole summer here.
It's yeah, because it could be completely different a month
Hmm.
from now,
Right.
which is kind of awesome. So, enjoy it while it's going on, and it's interesting to see that race over there with
Yeah.
the Padres and the Dodgers, and
Yes.
kind of flip flopping in first and second, and that which is kind of fun, because you thought the Dodgers were just going to run away with it and be 20 games up by June, but no, I mean
Yeah.
so
Yeah, a lot of exciting stuff here coming up in the world of sports. Obviously, as far as the Liberty Sports podcast goes, we've got a lot of fun stuff here that we're getting ready to get into full effect. Um, but yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe, like, follow. All the links are in the description below: TikTok, Instagram. Make sure you stay up to date with all that stuff, and also make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube because outside of the podcast episodes, we are going to be uploading like other videos as far as like breaking news, fun facts, and we got some stuff cooking. So make sure you guys follow. Dad, any closing remarks?
uh, go Tigers.
Go Tigers, go Lions, go Pistons, and OH.
IO.
That was a depressing IO. You get a
Well,
little bit
I
more
mean,
oomph
hey,
there,
I gotta support you guys, but uh,
Uh,
there it is. So.